Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could teach the gullible to never be so comfortable with eyes they eat like comfort food, to disregard the bogus claims and pseudoscientific claims? Can you imagine just how much indeed the world would change? No more political predators playing on the populace, but ilkas and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible, holding phony temper Bibles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was normal to have to prove a claim you make, and folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason stay strapped with logic and fast. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning show Road to Reason, the Skeptic's Guide to the 21st Century. Today I have the pleasure, the honor, and the intimidation of having Dr. Robert Penczak with me today. And I'm in a festive mood, as you can tell by my tie and my hat. So hopefully we'll have a very inspirational, religious show. And we're going to be talking about what?
Well, I don't know. Today I'm stuck with Santa. I don't know what he's talking about. We are going to be talking about Pope Francis and the papacy and taking a peek under the robes today.
Ooh, that might be a scary thing to do.
This could be.
Scary. Oh. So, how it's a tradition here at, this actually bothers me, so I'm going to put it over here. But as it is a tradition here, we're going to keep you waiting to peek under those robes for a little while longer. And in the meantime, we're going to talk about news, announcements, the person of the week, joke of the week, so we can get everybody in a good mood and have a lot of fun before we, take a peek under that robe.
Yeah, I'm fairly grumpy most of the time, so I'm not going to bring any good mood stuff, but you do your best. I'm going to fight this.
All right, well, why don't we make a couple of just quick announcements first. I want to, we're going to be talking about this a little bit more, and this is, a book that we have. We've had the author here before, and Dr. Andy Thompson, and this is the Spanish version of the book that recently came out, so I encourage good Christmas gift to give to people. And the other book that I encourage people that I like is American Secularism. This is a fairly new book. It just came out a few weeks ago, and I think you'll enjoy it.
And my understanding is that one of our own Road to Reason celebrities happens to be in this American Secularism book. So if you're interested in finding out more about David Tamayo, take a look at that book.
Might be in there.
To read it.
Now, you're going to mention something about?
Yeah, we also, in case you noticed on the credits, we have 5 new hosts that have joined us.
Yes.
We're really excited to bring some new energy to the group. Also a lot of diverse perspectives, so we're really eager to have them.
And always looking for more. So if you're interested in hosting or being a co-host or bringing someone that you like to the show, please let us know, and we'd be more than happy to make some space for you and come up with some great ideas. We've had some great shows thanks to the different number of people we have hosting.
Right, and always feel free to make suggestions on the Facebook page. Today we're not taking phone calls because we have a fairly limited staff, but we're always have that Facebook up there. So if you have a guest that you think would be good, if you're potentially interested in coming as a guest host one time, or if there's some things that you think we could do better, do differently, we're really looking for feedback and we're interested in what the community has to say. So please hit us up on Facebook, and we'd like to interact with you.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the announcements that I have is the 5th anniversary of the Black Non-Believers. This is going to be in Atlanta on the 16th of this month. I'm sorry, of the next month. I'm already getting ahead of myself.
We had some eggnog as Santa before the show.
But let me tell you, it's going to be a great show. We're going to have David Silverman is going to be there. We're going to have, a dozen or so speakers that are going to be there. And it's really important that, considering the conversations we've been having lately about racism and about discrimination for religious beliefs and so on, it seems like people are becoming very polarized in this kind of thing. So I strongly encourage you to attend if you can, because they've been doing this for 5 years, and it's really commendable that they've been able to. It's very hard to run an organization like that, especially when you have a minority group. We all know that in the secular community, it tends to be old white men that are typically doing a lot of the moving. And so we need to get more people involved, and this is a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I'm going to run through. So I've got another announcement, and one that kind of plays into that. So Saved by Science is a project that I'm starting in Richmond, Virginia. We have a few programs coming up on January 10th. These are all on Sunday afternoons. January 10th at 3 o'clock, we're having one called There for the Grace of God Go I. This is going to be about kind of Islam, Islamism, Islamophobia, the liberal left's failure really to identify and to honestly address the problem of the tenets of Islam. And we'll also be talking about true bigotry, and there's plenty of that. There was a very interesting interview with Mohammed Saeed and a few others by Sean Hannity a few days ago, where Mohammed did try to introduce the voice of reason, was given a few seconds before Sean Hannity went back to his ranting and raving and brought in their
But now he can claim that he gave everybody an opportunity to speak.
He did. So Mohammed Saeed, Sarah Hayder, Peter Boghossian is going to join us by Skype. Andy Thompson's got expertise in religiously motivated suicide terrorism. These guys are all going to take part in that conference. David Silverman's going to send us something by video. That's January 10th. February 14th, Valentine's Day. For those of you who love humanity, come to Richmond and see Dave Silverman talking about fighting God as an atheist manifesto for a religious world.
And you know, he is a natural speaker. He's got that energy inside that I so much envy of him. He's, you know, when he starts talking and you're mesmerized. That's the word. So I strongly recommend that if you can make it to Richmond, it's a great opportunity to see David Silverman, to talk to him, and you know, you guaranteed you're going to learn a thing or two every time I see him. I do. So.
Right, and he's also a humanist, which is very interesting for, you know, a lot of these people that are leaving the secular community get attacked for things that they don't say or don't do or don't believe, and these are people that are really fighting the good fight to help all of us. So again, you know, it's a very interesting book. I've read about a quarter of his book so far. We'll have that finished before it comes up. So excited to have him. March 20th, we're going to have Linda Lascola talking about Caught in the Pulpit, talking about the Clergy Project. That's going to come up today a little bit. I think the Pope could use some exposure to the Clergy Project to know that you know there is another option to having blind faith. April 17th, Phil Torres wrote The End, What Science and Religion Tell Us About the Apocalypse. He's going to be on here as a guest in a few weeks, and then he'll be down in Richmond. So we're very excited. We've got a few great shows coming up. And later this summer, either early summer or late spring, I'm going to try to get David to come down here along with Candace Gorham, who's a guest coming up on our show. Her project is the Ebony Exodus Project.
You will send your limousine to pick me up?
Yes, it's on the way. No, but so she writes about why a lot of African American women are leaving Christianity and why it's important that they do so. So we're going to have a show here in 2 weeks with her, and then again late spring, early summer, hopefully David and her will get together to talk about some unique problems faced by the Hispanic community and by the Black community in terms of trying to leave religion when it's such an invasive thing that's in their communities.
Yeah, invasive and pervasive. Well, another announcement is that little thing called Reason Rally. You've heard of it, Reason Rally. But I'm going to continue plugging it into the end because I think it's probably the single biggest event that we're going to have next year where, in fact, American Atheists is canceling their, and a lot of other groups are canceling their yearly meetings to make sure that people have enough money and time and to come to this event. So it's an amazing thing. We're expecting about 100,000 people to show up to the mall. It's going to take place right in front of the Lincoln Memorial where Martin Luther King gave the famous I Have a Dream speech. So it's a very appropriate place to be. And as I said, we're expecting about 100,000 people to show up and lots of fun, lots of interesting people some people that are going to be surprisingly secular. In other words, are going to come out as secular, famous people. And so I strongly recommend that you come. Guaranteed fun or your money back. The event is free.
No, it's such an amazing idea just to have that, because one of the things that we run into a lot is how isolated atheists have always felt. And if you really have a mass of 100,000 people that embrace reason and logic, it just really empowers all those people that were waffling about.
You feel that freedom. It's almost as a 2-year-old running naked in the beach. You know, it's you feel that there's you can say anything, you can talk to anyone about anything, and the best part is that it tells our politicians that we count, that we are a bigger group than other more influential groups in here, and that they don't have to pander to the Christian right or the religious people all the time. That here's a big group of humanists. Now, this is not this meeting is not for atheists and agnostics only. This is for anyone that believes in reason, anyone that believes in the separation of church and state, and really for the nuns, those people that don't attend church, they don't give money for the churches or anything like that. So I expect it's going to be, I mean, we had this in 2012, and we had 25,000 people that were there, even though there were torrential rains. This time is done later in the year. The chance of rain is going to be a lot less, and it's expected to be just magnificent. So I truly encourage everyone to come in for the recent rally.
Yeah, and one of the cool things that Dave Silverman talks about in Fighting God is that it's really erroneous to think that there's only 5% or 8% atheists. When you use a true definition of people that don't have a theistic belief, that number is getting closer to 30-ish%. And so it's not that there's 70% Christians and 5% atheists. It's like maybe 50s, and if you look at all the people that go to church but don't actually believe in the stuff that they're sitting there for because they're there for social reasons or family reasons, we're not such a teeny tiny minority that politicians can keep ignoring us.
And even better, we want politicians to not feel ashamed of that. So anyway, we need to move on because we have I think we may have to jump to the
we got a couple of news. I'm going to do one last announcement. Is next week Larry Mendoza is going to have DJ Grothe on here, and the week after that, a new host, Scott Maddox, is going to have Candace Gorham on to talk about the Ebony Exodus project. So yeah, let's run through. You want to start with the news, and then we'll.
I'll do a really quick news because it's something you already touched upon, and that is ex-Muslim Miriam Namazi. She was appearing at University of London last week, and there's a video of it on the internet. So basically the issue there is that before she started talking, there were protests. The Islamic groups were saying that she was creating an area where they didn't feel safe, et cetera, and that's expected and that's typical. The problem is that they went and disturbed the meeting, they heckled, they interfere with the PowerPoints, all of that, all which has been filmed and posted online. But the problem is that a lot of the groups that we consider liberal, the LGBTQ and the feminist groups, came out in support of the Islamic group, saying that criticizing Islam is homophobia. Islamophobia, another phobia, Islamophobia, and they were supporting it. And so they're basically trying to cut down the discussion. So now you have very liberal groups getting together with very right-wing groups sort of to attack what I consider the middle. So that's something that is going to be discussed more, but it's really very scary.
Yeah, it's an enormous problem, and it's all the people that are liberal. It's like we forget that if you tolerate the most brutal intolerance, you're really selling out all the moderates there, all the reformers, all the gay people, all the feminists, everybody that's sitting in that situation in some of these Islamic-run countries. If you're not, if you're an outsider, you're in a lot of trouble. It can literally be a death sentence. And so what we really need to do as liberals is to help support the moderates there. And that isn't done by calling somebody a bigot because they say, well, here are some of the tenets of Islam, here are some of the things that might be dangerous. And Sarah Hayter gave a wonderful speech at American Humanist Association and really was pretty poorly received by the liberals, despite that, she has kind of an inside track and knows what she's talking about.
We have that in our group, I've encountered where also if you criticize culture, if you criticize, anything that is idea should be criticized, whether there's religion, culture, or the ethnic behaviors. Is the behavior, it's the stuff, are those ideas that we need to criticize. And by criticize, I mean the positive and the negative, not just negative. Anyway, we're running out of time because we have these topics that are so passionate. We can get so passionate.
Yeah, we'll work some of these into the show part maybe. So you want to move on to our secular person of the week?
Yes, secular person of the week is who?
We're going to declare that as Rational Wiki.
That's Rational Wiki. That's not a person.
Corporations are people. Nonprofits are people. If any corporation or nonprofit deserves it, Rational Wiki. I was having a hard time finding just some good information I want on the Pope quickly and the papacy and a lot of stuff. You should always remember, take a look at Rational Wiki, because they really do have, for people that try to be critical thinking, try to look at things evenly. You don't want to just go to a left-biased or right-biased place. Rational Wiki does try to, start with critical thinking.
I have to admit that I don't look at it often enough.
Yeah.
All right, so person of the week. All right, so now we come to the joke.
Now we come to the joke of the week, which is about the GOP, God's Own Party. I thought it was really funny how Scalia who, you know, puts the Bible above the Constitution, and then Clarence Thomas and Alito, all these, you know, diehard right-wing Catholic conservatives decided to boycott when the Pope came and wanted to say, well, unbridled capitalism might not be perfect for humanity, and that we do have to take the environment.
Now they're for the separation of church and state.
Yes, so they have come around to separation of church and state. So,
well, you know, that's not a joke. That's sad. I mean, it'd be a joke if it was not real, but the problem that is true. And so that's not a, no, I have a joke.
Thank God.
Thank God. I have an actual joke. So the Lord said unto John, come forth and receive eternal life. And so he came fifth and got a toaster instead.
Got hosed.
Isn't that fun?
God laid it out. Fourth, he would have had it. Anyway. All right. We're going to head off to some public service announcements. We'll be back in a few minutes to talk about the Pope and the papacy.
Welcome to Cooking with Christ. Today, your host, Jesus Christ, and his co-host, Mr. Hanky.
Welcome, everybody, to today's edition of Cooking with Christ. I'm your host, Jesus Christ, and with me today we have Mr. Hanky, the Christmas Pooh, because today is a very special day. It is the Christmas special. And we are going to teach you how to make a wonderful Christmas casserole.
Jesus, I got an idea. I want to float by you.
Okay, you can, just so long as you don't make any more turd jokes. Have you ever heard the expression of tempting the patience of Christ?
Well, I got something serious I want to talk about.
So long as it's serious.
Instead of a Christmas casserole, why don't we make it a Christmas corn casserole?
All right, that's it.
You little crap. He's kicking the crap out of me. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus, kicking the crap out of me. Help.
Thank you, dear. Well, you're very supple. Just like I was at your age. Back then, I was a sex expert. Used to call me the buttered biscuit. I know about birth control, too. So you can ask me anything, baby.
Bedsider.org has birth control information and a lot more. And it's...
Have you had sex in this car yet?
This is Richard Dawkins. Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humor, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait. Look at them now on Facebook and YouTube. And remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Looks like it's done.
Don't let salmonella get funky with your chicken. On average, 1 in 6 Americans will get a foodborne illness this year. You can't see these microbes, but they might be there. So learn the right temperature to cook each type of meat. Keep your family safe at foodsafety.gov.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
French fries. Finding best potatoes.
No!
Russet. Fingerling. Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
A critical thinker is in a frame of mind of always questioning everything, including things they don't necessarily want to question. You may have done some research and satisfied yourself on a position you're sure is right. Good. Now, after a month or two of that, go look at some research that opposes your point of view or challenges the position you've taken. You can even look into it with the idea of poking holes in their arguments if you want, but it would be better to just have an open mind and read it as though you'd never heard or seen anything on the issue before. You may be very surprised what you learn, and if you're doing this right, you will be. Always be open to opposing points of view and counter arguments. That's what critical thinking is all about. And now you know.
Welcome back to Road to Reason. And you know, as Chris Shelton said, if there's one thing that marks Catholicism, it's being open to other points of view. All right, maybe not on dogma. But anyway, welcome back. We're going to take a peek under those robes now. So we're going to start by just telling you what the papacy is, talk about what the Pope is, go through a little history, and then David got some nice pictures for us that will help kind of walk us through things.
I have to admit, I stole those pictures from the internet, but they have credits. So they and they were posted there to communicate. So the word Pope, El Papa, and of course the Latin was the church's language for the longest time until 1967. So the word Pope, it means...
It's father, and it's not an accident that religion plays on this, where there's, you know, Father Pope, there's Father God, there's Mother Mary, there's the Mother Church, there's brothers, there's sisters. Mm-hmm. Andy Thompson talks about this in Why We Believe in God, it's the book that David's wife translated right here, which is incredibly cool. There's also a translation of this in Urdu at great risk to the people that did that, because it's important to get this information out. So this talks about why we believe in God, the science behind all of that. And one thing that evolutionarily, it's very important that we trust our families, we help our families. From Richard Dawkins' gene eye view, it's really critical to get the genes into the next generation. And religion plays upon how we love our family and trust them and sacrifice for them and do this by replacing I think Andy put it as replacing the real bonds of kinship with fictive bonds. Yeah. And so, Pope is just one more example of... And
how many times have we seen where it's many religions, not just the Christian, they all do that. It's a way of appropriating that relationship and then sometimes testing it. If, in fact, Jesus himself says in the Bible that I'm here, you need to leave your family, you need to abandon your wife, your kids, and everybody, and come follow me because I am now your leader, I'm now your father. And he uses that father metaphor a lot, which especially at that time in Judaism, the father-son was the strongest kinship that you could have, even stronger than mother. At that point, but they hijacked the entire thing for sure. So the whole hierarchy also is a hierarchy copied on Rome, where you have bishops that are in charge of certain regions, and you have a board of directors, which is the cardinals, and they get to select. There's no democracy here at all. They get to select the next person according to the politics and the needs of the church, according to these cardinals. And everybody else, once it's selected, everybody's supposed to say, oh yes, this person is holy, and bow down and basically do anything that this person will tell them to do, and they have. I mean, we have the Inquisition, the Crusades, and all those things that have, where the Pope says, do this, and I guarantee you get into heaven.
Right, and that's a problem. As soon as you outsource your morality to somebody else or some other body, you're in a lot of trouble because you stop thinking about it, and people...
But you're making an assumption that there's a morality there to start with.
There's a good point. Yeah, no, but people have an agenda. The church has an agenda.
Yes.
There's another great book I want to mention is Craig James, The Religion Virus, and he talks about religion as a meme and how there's all sorts of things that serve the religion. They don't serve the individuals. They don't serve the flock. They're not helping the people, and we can really see how Catholicism, but lots of religion, harness either evolutionary tendencies or social constructs, and they harness these to serve religion. Yes. It doesn't, God does not need our prayers, He does not need our money.
Growing up as a Catholic, I very, very often heard the term, we have to defend the faith. Defending the faith. It's not defending your family or not. No, it's defending the faith, defending the church, and the church is more important than anything. Which explains a lot of the problems the church has encountered over its history, because the priority has been to defend the church and not defend the individuals, not defend the children, not defend anybody else. It's defend, and when it comes to money, when it comes to power, when it comes to anything, the church is more important than anything. Mm-hmm. And so there have been popes that have been poisoned because they didn't follow this. And so, we have to, there's a long history there. This is a mega corporation, mm-hmm. Has its own country, which gives it all that religion / government / corporation status. The best of all worlds.
Right. It gives it the protection as a sovereign body that when it's clearly done something wrong, like raping thousands of children, that it's still up to the Vatican, I guess, to release certain documents, or if it's been in one financial scandal after the next with a Vatican bank, it can still decide what it's going to share.
And you can then interpret things, and which you saw with the Vatican too. So my parents, when they went to church, when I was until 1967, it was in Latin. The Mass was in Latin, and the priest didn't face them, faced away from them, and they decided, no, we're going to make some changes, and all the arguments that they had before were no longer valid. Or the arguments, for instance, for things that the church has made up, like limbo. Where limbo, for those of you that may not know, is when a child dies before birth. Before birth. When a child that is born dies before it's baptized, mm-hmm. then people ask, well, does he go to heaven? Does he go to hell? Well, he goes to limbo, basically, and a place for eternity where he doesn't go to hell or neither one. Of course, that's very cruel for parents whose child just died. But unfortunately, I said fortunately, recently, in recent years, the church has rescinded that idea and put it to the side very quietly, mm-hmm. because they would never want to admit that they were wrong about anything.
It's interesting, you took back when you said before the child is born, but we should extend it back there because, all the fight about abortion rights right now, about women's rights to control their own reproduction, it's not about the children. This is about the religion getting to control their bodies. About 2/3, I think, of conceptions spontaneously abort. So
God is the biggest abortionist?
Right, so God is the biggest abortionist, and He's condemned all these, pre-fetal tissue to limbo until they recently, I guess,
yes.
reversed that. But, it sort of just does go to show that when religion has a free pass, gets to make up absolutely insane rules, then when billions of people say, well, okay, if the Pope said it, I guess it's true and he's infallible, it's dogmatic, it's built in.
Well, you said the word. He's infallible.
Yes.
And that's the other thing, very clever. Hey, let's come up with a religion, and you know what? We'll say that the chief here, he's infallible. That means whatever he says has got to be it. Mm-hmm. No one can question it, and anyone that dares question it, they're going to go to hell.
Right, and going back to the religion virus again, you can see that plays really well for the religion. It does not play very well for the billions of people that follow it or don't follow. I think, 98% of, there's a huge percentage of women that use contraception that are Catholics. And I forgot if it was 90 or 98.
Yeah.
But, yes, they're putatively...
which is good. I'm glad they're sort of picking and choosing the different things. Now, before the current Pope, there were 265 popes. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they were all great people, right?
Interestingly enough, a bunch of them were. Well, not so much. So I checked in with David Fitzgerald before the show. He said he is not an expert on popes, but one thing that we might want to look into is a bunch of the early popes were just made up. And I unfortunately didn't pull. I found the references.
Even the ones that were not made up are kind of interesting, colorful characters.
Well, they are, but I also think that it's really important. We're going to get where the papacy comes from, where it takes its that privileged state from.
Where does it come? How did they figure out that they had this power over everybody?
Well, not everybody agrees on this, but we actually dug back through the biblical records, and we found some never-before-heard audio.
From God?
This is actually from a conversation that Jesus had with Peter.
With his apostle, Peter.
With Peter the Rock. So if we can hear what Jesus actually, because Catholics and Protestants disagree on this, it leads to a very big...
Okay, so maybe God can... Do we have that audio for God?
This is God. I just want you to know that I have erased the audio. It no longer exists. You need to stop talking about it. And the Rock is now a professional wrestler, and that is how we are to refer to The Rock from now on.
That's insane, Your Holiness. You can't.
Whoever said I was insane, Rob, or whoever said I was sane, Rob.
Wasn't us.
How does God know your name?
That is a little frightening. All right.
Well, so it is in Matthew, in the Bible, where Jesus sometimes said, Peter, your name means rock, and upon this rock I'm going to build my church. Mm-hmm. And so
he said Peter once, or he may have said Petrus. Like, they apparently used a couple of different terms, and there's a big disagreement what he meant about.
Well, and obviously the Mormons and the Pentecostals and the Jehovah's Witnesses and everybody else that is not Catholic will not agree with that. I've heard the argument that is Peter means rock, but it was talking about the strength of a rock for faith. Not an individual person. It was just a metaphor. Because anytime there's something doesn't agree with you in the Bible, guess what? It's a metaphor. Yeah. You can get to interpret that whichever way you want. It's great. I mean, it's the beautiful thing about a religion.
Yeah, but
all religions.
The truly insane thing is that on that little bit of wordplay, you have a billion people that will believe one thing, make it the absolute center of their life.
Kill for it if necessary.
Kill for it, die for it, not have kids for it, miseducate their children for it. And think that they're doing wonderful, good things the whole time, and then you'll have a similar number that think this is just the silliest thing in the universe. Critical thinking might try to go back and look at the documents and figure out, no, I'm not talking about with Jesus here, but you try to figure out the basis that you're going to build something. You actually want a solid foundation.
Well, and fairly often, when one of the things, I mean, again, as growing as a Catholic, I was told never to question the church. Use critical thinking about all other religions. That was encouraged, and about everything else, science or whatever, but never apply that to the Catholic Church, because that's God's religion, and it's a different magisteria. Mm-hmm. So let's not talk about that. And I mean, if ask any Catholic why priests can't get married, and they will tell you because Jesus was, they're following Jesus' example, except for the first 1400 years when they didn't. Mm-hmm. Or ask him, where in the Bible does it say that Mary went up to heaven in soul and body? Mm-hmm. Nowhere. A pope had a dream about it, came out, made a dogma, and said, that's it. This is what the church now believes, and it has been ever since. And you know how much money gets spent on adoring Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
So
the other funny thing that with David's comment about those early popes is, so not only is this alleged saying of Jesus, it's disputed, whatever it was, the Catholics build their whole basis for the papacy, the Vatican, for everything that's followed on the idea that Christ gave this power to Peter. Peter can control everything on earth and in heaven, and here's this unbroken line of popes following down from this. And so a bunch of those first popes were simply made up. They're just fictitious. That and then
bought it.
Right. And then
buy the papacy if you had enough money. So Trump would have been a pope.
That's another one. Yeah, the buying. But anyway, so let's move on. You want to go through some? You got some great pictures.
Well, yeah, we have we have 5 popes from before. There, as I said, there are 266. We're not going to go through all of them. We'll just pick 5 at random, and let's take a look and see what we have as an example. And really, these were at random. So the first pope that we had is Boniface the 8th. And he was into orgies and partying, and he was really kind of cruel. He massacred an entire town, but he was really into kids. So surprise, surprise, that this early on, this Pope already was into pedophile, except that he was very open about it, and he said, that it was okay to have sex with children, with young boys, because it was no more of a sin than rubbing one hand against another. And even the poet Dante, many centuries later, in his poetry, in his book, he reserved a place for him in the 8th ring of hell. So nasty, nasty guy.
Yeah.
Now, how has that changed today?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I want to jump to Pope Francis because the church, for as long as they possibly could, hid their entire child rape scandal, and now everybody thinks that Pope Francis is this great progressive liberal who's here to reform things and fix things. Yes. And yet it's not like the Vatican said, we are now going to cooperate, here's all of our records, let's get at this.
Even worse, the UN about 8 months ago did a report, or completed a report investigating this, because this goes across countries throughout the world. And they had a lot of suggestions. They suggested that the Vatican fire all the known pedophile priests. They haven't. They said that they should give the authorities the information about these pedophiles to prosecute them because they are criminals. They haven't and will not.
Right, and who are they? Again, this is where their sovereignty, I guess, comes into play. We wouldn't have the luxury and option of saying, wow, that's a terrible crime, but we're going to handle it ourselves.
Yes. And
somehow
if
they
the Boy
do.
Scouts doing that.
And then still pretend that they have some higher moral authority despite being, complicit in this for decades.
And every time that they go at them from a religion side, they said, oh, but we're a country. We have sovereignty. Oh, well, you can't prosecute the Pope because he's the head of a state. And international law says you can't persecute the head of a state. You can take him to court, and which is ridiculous because we have. And so, yeah, we haven't made a lot of progress in that area. It's cosmetic. At the end of the day, is what are we doing about it? Well, whenever someone gets caught, and notice that the church not once has ever brought someone and say, here's this person. No, it's people from the outside that have done that. So,
and that's consistent with religion, that it's only when the secular group catches them or proves something or demonstrates evolution beyond the point of embarrassment to deny it, that then they embrace it as if it was their own idea.
And the method that God uses is the method that God uses to guide, like evolution is God's method in the Catholic Church. Don't ask before that, because that's God, Adam and Eve kind of thing. There's the rib and the mud.
Yeah, we were going to do one little news story about there's a 98 million year old or so snake skull that was found that demonstrates God's forward thinking. That snakes actually look like they found examining the inner ear, the bony structure, they can show that the snakes lost their limbs from becoming like burrowing creatures, and there's a lot of similarities between other burrowing creatures. So God apparently did not knock the snake's limbs off for his transgression in Eden. He took the multi-million-year approach of wilting his limbs as it decided
So the snake did hand over the apple to Eve.
But now it can't. God solved that.
Oh boy.
All right. There was also, I guess, the mention of hell in there. I don't know if we want to talk about just what a belief in hell and heaven do to how you act in the here and now.
Yes. The carrot and stick.
Right, and you can see this really well with what's going on in Islam, where if you genuinely believe in martyrdom is going to get you and as many friends and family as you want into this beatific afterlife.
And the virgins, come on.
Yeah, I mean, so beliefs truly matter, and it's something that if you believe in a hell and you believe in papal infallibility, and if the Pope is going to say something about gay people are an abomination, you must stone them. Now you have real cognitive dissonance and you have a real quandary. Do you go out and stone them? Do you do the cafeteria picnic and say, maybe that one I'm going to leave out?
Maybe you throw a diamond at them and call that stoning.
No, you throw a little pebble and you say, okay, now I followed my religious law, but I'm not going to take it any further than that. The Year of Living Biblically is a book where they do that. Right. But so these beliefs beliefs really do matter. The belief in heaven and hell really does change for true believers how they act here.
The beauty of that is that you don't have to prove it. And it's fear. You bank on people's fears of what's going to happen, fear of death, what's going to happen after you die, and then and the reward, oh, you're going to get this or hell forever, which is kind of immoral, of course, because if you do something that is sort of finite, you have a small transgression, I mean, considering eternity is a small transgression, and now you have eternity to pay for it, and eternity is a very long time. It's ridiculous. It's immoral, in my opinion.
Well, and it's funny, as I was listening to a book about Pope Francis on the way up that I think runs through a bunch of speeches he's given, and so he talks about to be a true Christian, you must be joyous, you can't be sad, you have to trust in, the Lord is always merciful, will always slay your evil dragons and save you. And it's like, this is not moral teaching. We get people to believe in false stuff. You can ignore the problems here on earth because it'll be fixed later, or you can ignore this because God will fix it. Or if you're genuinely sad, you're wrong, don't be sad. Your life is good because God made it good. And
it brings a good point. The church and the Catholic Church, since we're picking on the Catholic Church in this show, is very flexible. Throughout the church of 1,000 years ago, no one would recognize today. But if you look at the Catholic, if you go to church and attend church services in Haiti today, and then you go and attend church services in Argentina or in Chile, you would not recognize the two. they're so different from each other. So, you know, it adapts so long as people continue donating money, calling themselves Catholic, and pushing in. And then when it comes to shove, on a few occasions, then they will come in and say, this is wrong, you got to get away from it. Again, if the church is not going to suffer in there. So it's not bad. It's not a bad gig. Let me tell you, if I didn't have morals and ethics, I would start my own church. It's a sweet,
not
sweet
the
business.
first person to have said that.
Oh.
All right, let's see our next pope, historical pope.
So the next one is Leo X. And he's one of your favorites.
Let's see. Never has a pope been so dedicated to expensive earthly pleasures than Pope Leo X. He spent huge fortune left by his predecessor in just 2 years. Leo had a fetish for bawdy jokes and obscene comedies, which were often performed in the Vatican with cardinals as actors. To maintain his lavish lifestyle, he sold indulgences.
What a good, the indulgences, that's a good
gig.
To
stop on. And even our, well, I guess we'll finish reading this so we can get to a couple of other good points. He just took it off.
Yeah, but he was into the your favorite, it's Fable of Christ.
Right. How well we know what a profitable superstition this Fable of Christ has been for us and our predecessors. All right, I think that's all.
Very honest. Very honest. I like that.
He's got the Trump honesty there of saying what he meant, but it's such an abhorrent thing. And
granted, then he didn't know about the internet, and he didn't think this was going to get out of the circles.
Right, that's probably his little but what more can you say than that? That there certainly are genuine believers. And David Silverman points out, and a lot of people do that. These should be seen as either victims of a bad epistemic system, or people that have been duped, have been tricked. There are then other people where I would lump a lot of the apologists who know full well what they're doing, who know that this is a fable, who know this is mythology, who can exploit it for monetary gain or power gain.
These pastors that make $600,000 every weekend, every Sunday, they know what's up with the gig?
No, that's a true believer. No, but yeah, you really, what does it say? Follow the money, follow the power.
And really, it's what it is. And it goes with all different superstitions. This just happens to be a superstition where they sell you, they tell you what the problem is, and they sell you the solution. The God Virus by Darrell Ray. Darrell Ray talks about this cycle of guilt where religion will create a problem that you have that you didn't even know you had, and then they'll have the only cure for it is by repenting for what you did and going to the priest. And it might be masturbation, something that people are just going to do, but now that it's a sin and you keep doing it and you can't escape feel
it.
Guilty.
You
donate money.
Guilty. You run back, you donate money because God apparently needs money. But again, religion is not an innocuous thing. It really is predatory.
Well, but let me tell you, this Leo X then should be blamed because it was these indulgences that actually created the Protestant church. That is so big now, but it was because people, a monk in Germany thought that this was silly. That how can you sell these things? It should be available to everyone. Very profitable to the church. And thousands upon thousands of people, the 100-year war lasted, thousands of people dying, fighting, the Protestants and the Catholics fighting each other, where the two leaders, because now the other guy said, hey, let's go attack the Catholic Church because they're not the true followers of church. And now you have dogmatic thinking and fighting, and whoever is the strongest is going to win. It has nothing to do with God.
Right. There's no intellectual way to resolve it when faith is at the core. When it's not based on looking at the facts and thinking it through and making rational arguments, and when it's just based on you claiming that you know something because you have faith in this higher power, there's no way to resolve it other than war.
What's fun is that Martin Luther, who was this priest that I'm talking about, he was even more anti-Semitic than the Catholic Church at that time was. And the Catholic Church has a history of anti-Semitism. Even World War II, they looked the other way. They, as they did in Argentina and other places, they have taken children from people that were going to be executed and say, well, we got to convert these kids to Catholics and give them up for adoption for Catholic families. Mm-hmm. And so, very dirty. I think we should go to the next because we're running out of time.
Okay. Although, I don't know if you want to say where. I want to jump back to Pope Francis because we promised to talk about him. So two things.
I want to leave some time to just pick on him alone.
How can you pick on it, Anne? So one thing with the indulgences, there was sort of a joke a few months ago, except it wasn't a joke, that if you follow his Twitter feed, this is one way you can start to get indulgences. And it's absolutely laughable, except that it's real and except that people buy into this. And the Vatican then tried to spin it, well, it's not as simple as you just click. Because you also have to, I don't know, pray correctly or do these other like minor things. You have to believe, it has to be sincere.
Well, like atheist.
Yeah. I mean, so
what did he say about atheists? He said if atheists, atheists, first he said something to the effect, atheists will go to heaven, and then the Vatican came out and said, well, you can't confuse salvation with redemption or something along those lines.
Right, and it's something about if you don't willfully or knowingly turn away from God. So if you're like living under a rock, you've never heard of Jesus, or I guess if you were, died in utero, then you don't have to go to hell. It was a little bit unclear. If you're an atheist that says, this is a crock, I'm not buying it, I'm never going to give a penny to religion, I'm not sure that atheist is welcome into heaven.
It certainly made my mom happy, though. My mom is like, oh, good. My son David, he's so proud. So that was good. All right. I think we should go to the next Pope. All right, so this Pope is Alexander VI. He was into orgies. Nothing wrong with that if you're an adult of consenting adults. He also offered prizes for men. A lot of the times, the same preachers that were there to fornicate in front and give presents to whoever was able to copulate with the most women. And so he was a little bit of peeping Tom.
Yeah, like to force the women to grovel around their feet like swine.
Yes, he would throw things on the floor for them to eat.
Yeah, so sometimes modern religion acts like misogyny has nothing to do with their teachings and preachings and their leadership through the ages.
Yeah, let's go to the next one, because I want the sixth one to be our current Pope, and I don't want to run out of time. So this one is this is Julius II. So I gave it to him. He got Michelangelo to paint the Sixtine Chapel. That's very nice. I've seen that. It's beautiful. And but he was the first one to get the French disease. Did you know that? He was having sex with males, and he got syphilis. So one of the first people in Rome to get syphilis, he got it from male Rome prostitutes. So basically, it was a place where science met religion. And that.
Syphilis could be a curse from God. Like if you talk to Michelle Bachmann.
But let's bring it up to today. How has the church improved that today?
Not so much.
Exactly. AIDS. Think of AIDS. I mean,
right. You look at, you can go to George Bush, or you can go to Pope Francis, and
look at the attitude on condoms.
Right. So this is, we have a life-threatening illness, and that we can actually minimize how many people are going to get it. So Bush took the tact of saying, well, if you will take our abstinence-only planning over in Africa and stuff, then we're going to help you with this. If you're not going to take our ways, which don't work, but it's part of my religion, sorry, we're not going to fund you. And so, that condemns
contraceptives,
millions of people to get AIDS and die from AIDS. And then the Pope, even Pope Francis, what's his stance?
Even Pope Francis, I think it was last week, he was asked, a reporter was there to ask him and said, look, I think it's really well known now that condoms prevent AIDS. Is the church ready to change its mind on the use of condoms? And he said, I think his answer is really weird and strange. He says, your question is incomplete. It needs to be expanded, and we need to talk about the greater issues that we have, like hunger, and then he went off on a tangent. Mm-hmm. And that pisses me off.
Yeah, the church is something very good at weaseling out of saying what it means. So
I'm willing to bet that reporter is not going to be in the plane next time.
Yeah.
That's when you got that power.
Right, but so if admitting that at face, like, nope, I'm still going to stick with it, would just be humiliating, it'd be crippling, it'd help more and more Catholics to keep leaving in droves, and therefore you sort of spin away from it and just don't give an answer. And we'll see this with evolution. Like, there's always a soft answer that they don't quite commit themselves because they're embarrassed, they're forced.
And hope it goes away. Yeah. And to the next topic. All right, so let's talk to the next Pope. And I think this will be the last one we'll talk about here. This is Innocent the Eighth. He is called the Pope of the Golden Age of Bastards because he had about 8 kids out of wedlock. By the way, all these popes used to be able to get married. there was no problem in getting married. So this is
just a bonus fun.
Yeah, and so he had eight known kids that he recognized that were outside of marriage, but he still found time to create the Inquisition. You know, that little institution that tortured and did so well in medieval Europe. You know, the Dark Ages. You know, so that is our historic popes. I think we should come in to the present, to our Pope of today.
I think we're letting the Inquisition off easily, but I guess people already know about that, so we'll move on to Pope Francis.
And if you want to be horrified, there are some museums in Europe and Spain and some places like that where they actually have, or you can look at it on the internet, the actual items, the actual tools that they use to torture people. And it's unimaginable ways of torturing people, maximizing how long they stay alive with the maximum amount of pain. It's really incredible. It's really creepy.
Another fun and friendly way is if you're into animations, you can go to animation sites that like sell castles or dragons or all sorts of fun stuff. They also have sections of torture devices, and they're all Inquisition based.
Inspired by the Inquisition.
Right, they need that little tag. No, I mean it's really so laughable, except that it happened and so many people were tortured, killed, suffered, all in the name of religion, all by people either doing good for God or pretending that they think they're doing good for God.
This Pope that we have today, I'll read it because I don't. His name, his original name, because all popes get a new name. His original name is Jorge Mario Bergoglio. The parents are Italian. He was born in Argentina. He's 76 years old, and he is the first pope from the Americas. He's the first pope from the Southern Hemisphere, and he is. Wait a minute, same birthday as you.
He does. It turned out. So there will hopefully be a rap video coming out if I can put it together in the next few weeks. We do share the same video. I've kept. Well, actually, I have a different name in the rap video, so maybe I too have changed my name. What is the deal with popes changing their name? Do they get to erase their past history?
That's what I thought it was about.
Yeah, so one thing I want to talk about with Pope Francis was back before he changed his name, in Argentina there was the Dirty Wars, when military juntas took over and were killing lots of people on the left. And
the church allied itself with the...
For the first time in history, the church, other than Nazi Germany, for the almost the first time in history. The church has an authoritarian bent. Pope Francis talks about this himself. He doesn't come out and say exactly what he did, but apparently it's something that he does struggle with, and hopefully he truly does. There's accusations whether or not he sort of sold out a couple of priests that were on the left, or if he simply didn't try to save them as quickly as he could, and it's unclear. We don't really know what happened, except that
there's some evidence that has been shown on this. Basically, he served as the dictatorship there in the 70s did not touch the church, and if you were a priest, a nun, or anything like that, you were with the dictators and supporting them, and you didn't cross them, and they protected you, and so it was a nice symbiotic relationship. And the junta would go to church and so on. So head of the Jesuits was the Pope, Bergoglio, who's the Pope today, and he did a couple of things that were well documented. One is there was the junta used to get people, women especially, that were pregnant and not kill them right away. They would keep them and wait until they gave birth, and as soon as they gave birth, they would take the baby and give it up for adoption to a Catholic, and usually it was the Catholic Church was the one that helped facilitate that. Now, of course, then
the mother was disappeared, right?
The mother would disappear. And there were thousands. They would get buried in mass graves, or they would throw them out in the middle of the ocean, where currents would take it, towards Africa, and not, So the idea here was to get those babies, free babies, that are going to be Catholic babies, and even today they're using DNA to try to find people and identify those. Well, the Pope, there was evidence, letters, and documentation that showed that he knew of this woman, that he kept visiting her and was present when she was tortured, and then the woman disappeared and the baby disappeared, and he told the grandparents, saying, don't worry about the baby, he was adopted by a good family, and well, he somehow expected the family to take that well. And instead, they've been Now the other.
But I think there are also supposed to be a couple of liberal priests.
Yes, the other case is where there were two priests that were being a little bit too vocal about the junta and the military, and he was head of the Jesuits, and he decided to fire them, just let them go without a reason, without a trial. That they had not done anything, and even when they asked why, they said, "I have my reasons, get out." And as soon as they get out, they were arrested and they were tortured for 2 years. And it was through the Pope. The Pope then, after 2 years, decided to go plead their case and ask them to let him go. And they let them go. And one priest went to Italy, and the other one, I think it was Italy, and the other one went to Germany. And they were told not to speak about what happened or whatever, and one of them did speak. And
I understand that one of them sort of said that he didn't do stuff wrong, the other one laid out the case that you just laid
out the case and explained everything. The other one didn't want to talk about it. And so even today, you know, there are pictures of Pinochet in Chile, in Haiti with, you know, baby, you know who I'm talking about. So, you know, it's with Hitler, huge history with, you know, so...
Yeah, they pretend that Hitler was an atheist when he was raised Catholic. He was never excommunicated. He signed the Concordat of Worms.
And they prayed and went to church.
Right, and you know, so the Catholic Church decided, when they had a chance to hopefully make a moral stand against this, and you would think the Pope, if he's, you know, if anybody's going to make a moral stand, right, isn't that what he has the position to do? And so they didn't stop things when they might have had a chance. Yeah. And, you know, again, it's wielded as like, you know, if you're promote atheism, you're going to get Hitlers and Stalins, but it's really the authoritarian mindset, that powerful hierarchy, and...
Well, so I don't, you know, again, we're running out of time, but I don't want to not say some positive things about the current Pope.
All right, although I do want to say one more if I can. Yeah. You also mentioned that he's a Jesuit, the first Jesuit priest, and so the Jesuits are the one with that famous line, you know, give me the child for 7 years, and so what they want to do...
I'll give you the man, yeah.
Right, and so they know if you take them, you indoctrinate them at that, you know, time, and in the book I was listening to on the way up, he talks about that, how when children are exposed to God's mercy at an early age, it stays with them for life. Yes, that's a good, you know, recreation of that Jesuit phrase. So he's trying to get this whole group, teach them faith-based processes instead of critical thinking. So even if he was a nice guy, that doesn't fix anything. You've now doomed a whole generation to not thinking critically. But now the nice things.
Well, I know I'm going to have relatives looking at this show and saying, oh, you just picked on the bad stuff and didn't say anything. So I will say that lately he's come out to talk about in favor of controlling global warming. So that's good. It's a good platform about responsible protection of the environment. That's also a good thing. Of course, that has those two things and consumerism. But those things have put him at odds with the right-wing conservative people in this country who loved him up until when he said that. And then they wanted separation of church and state. You know, you have these political candidates. Oh, well, the Pope doesn't know what he's talking about. And you have Trump saying, for instance, the Pope should not be talking about science. You know, the Pope does have a degree in chemistry. I don't think, I think he's more qualified than Trump is to talk about science.
If there's anybody who shouldn't talk about science, it's 90% of the Republicans.
So now he also gets credit, and I don't know if it's true or not, but he gets, certainly the church touts that it was thanks to him that the relationship between Cuba and the United States has recently, you know, improved. That's his doing. I'm not really so convinced about that, but...
I want to one other funny thing about trying to give credit is, stuff I was reading, Pope Ratzinger, they're trying to give credit for bringing on Pope Francis.
Yeah, the only thing is good.
In shame after not addressing the rape.
And so, you know, I think popes in general are very smart people. You know, they're a lot of times and this Pope, another thing that he's good at, most people think he's great at it, is PR. But when you look at the substance, what has he actually done to change the church? Nothing.
Well, I think they're going to give their billions away to all the impoverished people that he's fighting for. I believe that's next up.
But, you know, he condemns marijuana. He still condemns, you know, he still says that a woman that is divorced is going to go to hell.
They can't be ordained.
Women in, they're third, fourth class citizens. You know, the women in the Catholic Church will never be ordained, according to them. It's a man-run organization for men, you know, with women. Oh, but it's because we think women are so special, you know. So we got a couple of minutes.
No, we got a couple seconds. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Next week, Larry Mendoza is going to be here with DJ Grothe. And check us out on Facebook. Send us any suggestions.
But I had more things to talk about.